Hey y'all, welcome back. We're so glad you're here for an ASOTU Edge webinar. Today we're going to be joined by our friends at vAuto discussing optimizing profitability across multiple acquisition channels and rooftops. Joining us will be Derek Hansen, Vice President of Operations for vAuto and Cox Automotive, along with Drew Hall, Used Vehicle Director at Cloninger Automotive Group. Enjoy.
All right, Kyle, do you know what the number one sign that things are getting complicated is? Especially in used cars.
that we all woke up.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, recently the sign is which way is the world up? Carvana's up, CarMax is down. CarMax is trying to figure out what to do next, and they've always been the arbiter of what's good in used cars. And so when it comes to franchise dealerships, it's like, hey, we thought we knew where to look, but now we've got to run our own game.
For sure. When CarMax is having trouble, which they are, it's a sign that things are, and they're pretty good at complicated things, if you've been paying attention. It's just a sign that things are very complicated. And if dealers are going to play their own game, they need sophisticated tools, they need sophisticated strategies, and they certainly can't sit back and do nothing. So I'm so excited to have our guests today because these are folks that are doing it well, who have a lot of data, a lot of purview, and a lot of sophistication. So why don't we even wait even longer? Let's bring up Derek and Drew into the webinar.
Hey, good morning.
They are.
What's up, gentlemen?
Hey, how we doing?
Doing really great. Drew, let's just get right into it. I would love to help our viewers today understand a little bit about you, a little bit about the group, and what your role is there. So give us a little bit of size and scale and history.
Sure. So Drew Hall, been in the car business for about 28 years. Pretty much held in the variable side, every title as far as from salesperson, obviously, internet manager before it was what it is today. This was
when everybody was like, what do you do all day?
This is when you took the old Sony floppy disk camera, took a few pictures of some cars, uploaded it, and you spent a lot of time to get maybe a couple of leads a week. So finance manager, general sales manager, and most recently over the past several years, used car director for the Cloninger Auto Group.
And give us a little size and scale of the group.
So we are currently 5 rooftops, new franchise in Ford, Toyota, and Honda. Multiple points on everything except for the Honda store. We just have one standalone there. And then, of course, our used car operations at all rooftops.
And it's the Charlotte area and just a little bit in South Carolina, too, over the border, correct?
Correct, yeah. From the furthest one away to the each end, there's about a 3.5 hour distance between the furthest one on both sides.
Yeah, so drivable in a day, but not fun.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing so many dealer groups kind of like start to realize that this regional focus is a thing, and you've got a 3.5 hour gap is really not a long gap between stores. That's even a drivable gap for most customers these days thinking about where to buy cars. I'd love to hear, like, for you all, what does group strategy look like? Is it fairly decentralized or is it fairly centralized for people to understand, like, how you look at being a group?
So we basically have, each store has, so we have basic processes and policies in place across the group. But then that's just a baseline. And then each store has their own, based on their market, what their goals are, the overall size of that market. So they'll have their own personal touches that they'll put on top of those processes. And we use, obviously, vAuto, like most everybody in the country, to take that information and help us make the best decisions we can for stocking strategies. And we scorecard a lot of things. So we are very data central, because one thing we realize is that data doesn't lie. It just helps direct you into the areas to make the best decision and be profitable.
Derek, just a question on the kind of like dealer group operation strategy thing, because, as vAuto, you are kind of like working with dealers and dealer groups as centralization, as dealer groups are growing and learning to work together. And it's really a different thesis than maybe what 15, 20 years ago when vAuto was in its infancy as, hey, we're serving individual rooftops. And there's really been a position change to many more people thinking a bit more globally for their group. What are you seeing right now as dealers are kind of transitioning and learning to transition in the way that the education, the consultancy side of vAuto has had to lean into how to serve those groups better?
Yeah, it's a great call out, Kyle. And I love the intro because that is the perfect setup, right? When you look at the marketplace, it is quickly evolving and it's getting more complex. And you see that even with the major players. I think part of the reason you're seeing the headlines that we saw with CarMax, because the dealer base is raising their game, right? It's making it more competitive for those players at scale. And that has been a big focus of vAuto. As you mentioned, we really came to market as a rooftop tool 20 years ago. But over the last few years, we've really been focused on delivering capability and insight so that those groups can take the insight of vAuto, of all the 5 million VINs that are pulled every night, but they can distill it into the best practices for that group strategy to allow them the benefit of the scale they have, to give them the metrics they need to tap into, to refine the process, to get that feedback loop going. And this is where Drew has been a great example. As they've established those metrics across the group, we can now help them report. We can help them call out sources. We can help them drive to more profit, to the best practices as they see practices emerge from within the group, and proliferate those across the group to drive better performance overall and ultimately a better return. And that's really our focus at vAuto, is to partner with our dealer clients to help them execute their strategy to drive a greater return.
I love that. So when we were reading the headlines on CarMax and CEO being fired, all this stuff, the thing that everybody credited it to, like, well, look at Carvana's up 50% and CarMax is down 50%. And I love how you just said, actually, one of the big driving factors is that all of the dealers are getting really good and leveraging the right tools. So it's just making it a lot harder for them too. But that public narrative is not out there. So I love that you just like, hold on a second. They're actually having a hard time because we're good. Right?
Yeah. I think the game is, everyone's raising the game, right? The level of performance needed to succeed. So it's great.
We were just talking about that in one of our team meetings, saying the world is playing at a different speed now. It's not what it was 12 months ago or 24 months ago. It's not like the game has definitely changed. And if you haven't been doing the work to evolve with it, or you don't have the mindset of being really ready to go in and evolve hard with it, you're going to get left behind. Drew, let me ask you, what was going on in the business that led you to start thinking differently about how and where you're acquiring vehicles, and like what the collective impact of that could be?
Sure. So one of my job roles is I'm performance based, kind of the sheriff of the group, to make sure our performance is there, our processes are being followed, and all of our policies are being followed. And we've always, like there again, scorecarded a lot of things, and we put it in front of everybody, multiple, all the way down the funnel of employees at different levels between sales and service and parts, because we want to get better. And the only way to get better is to look at the data that's being provided for us, especially.
Can I pause you right there? You just mentioned the scorecard for several people. Can you give us a little insight of some of the things that are on those scorecards for the different people? I think that could be really helpful.
Sure. Scorecards. So in the variable side, we have, when it comes to overall inventory volume, we also track where the sources are coming from. Like each store has like their goal of what inventory level they want. And then underneath that level is breaks down into where they want those at inventory to come from. So whether it be trade-ins, whether it be service drive, whether it be street purchases, outside purchases through auction and rentals. And we've always kind of tracked just those metrics, like the percentages, and try to hit those, because at the end of the day, we realize that obviously trade-ins, the one we have the most control over, allows us a bigger ROI altogether. And then, of course, no surprise, the further down the funnel you get to where the auctions and the rental car companies go, that's where you pretty much are you're erasing all the good that you did with those, but they're necessary vehicles and opportunities, because that's exactly what they are. They're opportunities. And so we track those kind of things. We track our gap between how we pencil our deals and what the final verdict is when we get done. And then, so each person's responsible for their own goals, as far as when it comes to gap. And in service on their end, they track, time, technicians' times, how many cars are pushing out a day, all the way down to detail, how many detailers are pushing out certain vehicles a day. So we do that so we can bring everybody together, show them the numbers, find out who's going to move, and then the ones that haven't moved, help them move. So, and vAuto has been a big component of that, because they're, again, big database. it brings in all that information, but then it's like, what do we do with that information?
So when you say you want to help them move, I mean, it seems like, figuring out how to move the channel of acquisition is the path to profitability. You just mentioned, like, obviously trades, and then there's a continuum all the way down to auction and that. But is there a process to moving people from one to the other that allows them to see the benefit of the opportunity, to put the people in place, to put the processes in place, to find acquisition channels that are more profitable for that store or for the group?
Sure. It all starts with our general managers. They are the ones at the top of the funnel that everything has to be important to. And so when they wake up and we said, hey, we had a great month in sales, but our grosses and our return on investments was in the toilet. What happened? And if we don't have anything to pinpoint to go back to, then we're kind of lost. We end up repeating that same thing. So what we do is we take this data, we sit down with the people, we realize, and I don't know if we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we took tracking gap, which we've been doing for so long. We just tracked how our transition from the internet price versus selling price and allowance versus ACV. And that was just the start of things. And then when vAuto came out with where you could you track your sourcing for global acquisitions, that was a great starting point. And it got me thinking about how each one of our channels of inventory really are performing. So what happened is when we started in January of this year, I took my first spreadsheet and I turned it into a monster. So now we have so many points of contact that we can look at between there again, what percentage of sales does this source represent? What is the percent of the gross does it represent? All the way down to there again, gap, who appraised the car, where it came from, who desked the deal. And what we do is the general manager realized that when we broke it out by sources, I said, man, the auction is just eating my lunch. It's taking everything we're doing at the front door with the appraisals and things, all the money we're generating, and we're giving it right back. So what we recognized is even though we had a street purchase process at that store or those stores, we just didn't have enough. Those cars were turning faster. They were harder to get. We had to make more and more contacts. So we've grown those departments in each one of our stores. And all we're trying to do is we're trying to chip away from the where we have to rely on the auctions for our inventory.
Derek, I think that's a great moment. Like, you have such a purview on so many things and so many channels and all the data. How do you overlay on what he just said?
Yeah, and Drew is doing a great job of taking the insights in vAuto and deploying them in process and action. But what we saw, again, acquisition has been the name of the game coming out of COVID, right? With the disruption that we saw. And we wanted to empower the dealers to be able to better source vehicles in the channels that are available to them. And much as Drew said, right, I have these channels that I know are higher profit that maybe involve a different process, but ultimately it's employee and it's people at the dealership that are with the customer, right? From a trade-in perspective, how do I think about improving that? From a private party perspective, what I can do in a process that I build at the dealership. Customers in my service drive, I already have them they're captive at the dealership. I've already put eyes on that car and inspected it for service. I should be able to leverage that into my acquisition strategy. And then knowing, hey, there's still maybe holes in my inventory that I want to have on the lot that I need to fill. Then I go to the auction, right? And there's still goodness that comes out of that. It's virtuous, right? I have recon work done. I have detailing work done. I still get some F&I out of that deal. So being able to bring those channels together and use that as a cohesive strategy in how I drive throughput on the lot to have the necessary inventory to continue to grow and do it in a higher gross margin perspective. That's been the name of the game. And global search is that tool within vAuto that brings those channels together. And as Drew mentioned, as he's been tracking them by channel, he's seeing that differential performance and going back with that feedback and continuing to tweak, what is the offer we're willing to put on a private party car, and how do we think about that relative to the other channels, and how do we think about improving that process? And maybe one store is doing great in the group, so I'm going to take the process of that store and replicate it in others because I know how much profit's on the line as I get more proficient at acquiring that channel.
Do you feel like there is go ahead, Drew.
Well, I was just going to say, and that's a good point. One benefit and luxury about having multiple rooftops is that we will find that there's a store that will do really good and better than the other ones. And so what we're able to do is take what they're doing and bring that into our other organizations. And same thing, so everybody shares. And that's the great thing about our group is that we're all on the same page. We all meet every single day as a group for check-ins. We have weekly meetings to discuss things, but we're also willing to share with each other ideas and how we can do, because outside of my stores and one of my locations, everybody's pretty in a little bit different market. So we're not so close together that where we feel like, even though we're owned by the same owner, everybody is after their own.
Yeah, competition there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but we work well together because we know with being able to blend our inventories together, instead of like each store only having, say, 100 cars on the lot, they have the ability to sell 500 plus. So, and there again, going back to what you're talking about with sourcing, we recognize that, like with service drive, if we continue down our same path that we were going with service, and not realizing that captive customer is there, that we not only do we have the chance to meet the owner of that car, we get to check the car out with no surprises. It's already there. That we're able to realize that return on investment, when we went back and there again at the beginning of the year, really spread it out and see the final results, it became apparent that was an area that we were taking for granted. We were not putting enough emphasis on. So it's really kind of helped open up our mind for that.
I'm curious, we're talking about optimizing profitability, and you said, you and all the stores get together on a regular basis. And I'm always obsessed with like the most practical things someone can do right now. Can you just give us a little window into what that meeting looks like? Everybody gets together. What do you talk about and for how long?
So it's about 10 or 15 minutes every single day, same time. So it's, repetitious. And so it's there again, a scorecard. Every store fills out their own metrics, and basically it's just basically, what did we do yesterday? How many cars did we sell? How many cars did we service? What was our tickets look like? What was our grosses? What was our closing percentages on any kind of internet leads, things of that nature that we put in there. And we talk about those items. We also talk about trade-ins from the previous day. So one of the things that I do is we have a process in place for each one of our appraisers. And not only the appraiser, but also the backups to the backups to the backup. So every one of our managers is trained the same way, because we don't want the processes to change. Because typically what happens is the main guy goes and everything falls apart. Nobody knows what to do. Everybody's running around. We have every one of our managers trained the same way as if they were the main appraiser, because there's going to be a time where they're going to have to be called up from the miners to actually do that. And so by doing that, we go through, and every car that we have taken in from the previous day, whether it be auction cars, rental cars, trade-ins, street purchase, any of those things, we have certain criteria that they have to meet when they're doing their appraisals. And one of those things, when it's especially a front door appraisal, we do what we call an interactive trade appraisal. And interactive trade appraisal is basically where the appraiser meets with the guest. They walk around the car together. They talk about the likes and dislikes. Depending on the situation, we may have the customer ride with the appraiser, so that way they can experience things together. There's nothing like the old he said, she said, pointing the finger at, well, I see your car is having this issue. You're saying no, it's not. We like transparency. Yeah. So hey, if we look at the car, if the car is out of any kind of factory warranty, if it's an older car, we make those decisions for the customer to ride with the appraiser. So that way they can there again build a relationship. Know who the person is that's putting the number on the car, have any kind of comments. And what we found is that customers will tell you more about their car probably than they should. So that way, whenever the number is presented to them, there's no shock there. So we basically show a number. We line them out all the issues with the vehicle, pluses and minuses. So we give them credit for if the car's got a clean Carfax with good service history, if they got 2 keys, if there's some positives there. We don't want to just dwell on the negative. So we do all those things, and they have to have good notes. Notes have to be about the overall condition. It can't be a couple words like good shape. It has to have some meaning behind it. Same thing with the auction. They have to take any information that they've gathered from a condition report that's of significance, and they have to put that in there. They also have to list if they did the interactive trade appraisal or not. They have good photos. We make them go on a test drive between 3 to 5 miles. They have to take a before and after photo of the odometer. There again, trust but verify that they drove the car. And then
that's a good one.
Trust but verify?
No, not trust but verify, but the before and after photo that they drove the car, right? Like, because so many times, I drove it, boss, right?
Listen,
and it's like,
that is a good one.
No, I've seen dealerships where, like, the appraiser goes out, like, takes a once over, never even opens the car door, and it's like, it's a $15,000 ride, and you're like, yeah, boss, did you drive it even around the block?
Well, and what that does is that allows us to, and we're not asking any of these guys to be technicians, but if they drive the vehicle, they get it up to certain speeds, they all have a predetermined route that they go on. So they had to line. This has been probably a couple of years ago that we actually made them come up with a 3 to 5 mile test drive route that gets them in different situations, whether it be highway, around town, curves, things that they can, where if they're driving a car, they can feel things. And that's the purpose behind it. So we start forgetting about the why. And that's the why is because if I drive it a mile down the road and I only get up to 35 miles an hour, a car is going to react different at 70. It's going to react different at stopping it from 70 to 0 and things like that. And so we try to emphasize that the why is it helps us to get better at our service. So when the technician comes to you, he shouldn't be coming to you saying, hey, the transmission is slipping, and you not be surprised. It should be, I did feel that. Here, it's in my notes here. I set up for that or whatever. And I look at those things every morning. I get up pretty early. I'm a pretty early riser. I get everything, and we color code them. So we like colors, green means everything looks good. All the notes are good. The photos are good. The R book was filled out correctly and not overly defined and then not underly defined. So as long as everything matches, that's all green. If yellow means that if there's something missing, maybe the R book is missing one key thing, whether it be drivetrain or something like that. And maybe they forgot the before or after odometer photo, something minor, nothing so crazy. Red means, hey, listen, we just messed up altogether. We didn't do any photos, any notes. We just messed up. And then
coaching opportunity right there, right?
Yeah, opportunity for improvement.
Derek, I want to ask you this as because for me, Drew is like you're a master data analyzer, right? And you're like, yeah, I made this monster spreadsheet. And I think Derek, a lot of times we go from like, oh, there's data. I would call that like data acquisition to data analysis. And it's like, yeah, we can start to understand a problem or start to understand an opportunity. And then a lot of people move to this data paralysis side where it looks like, Drew, you've kind of gotten over that. But for dealers that are wondering how to get back from data paralysis, because there's just so much, it's just so overwhelming. Maybe there's so many reports to look at. How would you encourage them or what reports would you encourage them to look at to get back into a data analysis state where they're really making decisions on a day-to-day basis on the right data right now when it comes to acquisition channels?
Absolutely, Kyle. And that's a key focus for us at vAuto is to help them get to an actionable state. So we take the best practices and the feedback from clients like Drew, and we operationalize that within the software to serve that up so dealers can activate on it and take the actions necessary within their business. A key one is appraisal effectiveness report, right? So Drew already mentioned how important it is to put the sources on the car so you can look at your performance by source at a given rooftop. Great. Now let's go a level further and look at my appraisal effectiveness, my appraiser effectiveness, right? So I have 9 appraisers within this rooftop. How are they performing with the look to book ratio, with the estimate of recon versus what was actually spent on the car, right? Ultimately, with my time to sell on that car, you can start to track that by appraiser at the rooftop, all within the software. Again, so you find those coaching opportunities, right? So you capture the best practices and you make sure you proliferate them across the store to get better performance. So we're taking the great practices that we have from operators like Drew who are really cutting edge, and we're trying to help operationalize that even for him within the software so that he can continue to proliferate that. And then everybody's looking at the same score sheet, right? Everybody's seeing it within vAuto. It's there at their disposal every day, and it's ultimately helping improve performance.
Yeah, I think that's so clutch because that, like you said, how do I get to actionable items? Like, how do we actually do something with it? And what do you see are the biggest hangups? Like, can you give us like 1 or 2 of the parts where people get stuck, right? Like they make some progress and then most likely to get stuck here in this place or here in this place. What comes to mind?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it was what Drew mentioned, right? So the different channels have different challenges in acquiring the vehicle, right? When he's talking about the difference between service drive or trade-in or even private party, right? If you're out combing Facebook and other places. And where we see dealers get stuck is, yeah, that was a great car, but it was an anomaly. It's really hard to buy cars from private parties. So even though we had an extra $1,500 gross on that car, we're going to go back to the auction, or we're going to go back to, just because they can't distill the data to translate it to consistent action and progress. And so that's where I've been really impressed with Drew in that discipline, right? That's the name of the game at the dealership, particularly in used cars. It's the discipline of how you operate. And that's one of the strengths of vAuto, is giving you the insight to have the discipline and exercise that muscle day after day. And that's what our performance managers are great at, partnering with our dealers to exercise the discipline, right? So, hey, this is what went well with the 5 cars you acquired last week in private party. Let's talk about how we build on that process, knowing how important that channel is. And hey, that channel won't be enough to fulfill all the needs of the dealership. So yes, let's go look at these 10 cars at auction to fill those holes. But again, keeping yourself accountable to that scorecard and every week trying to get better. That's really where vAuto is trying to help you go.
Hey, Drew, how do you interact with your performance manager? Can you give a little insight there on how that interaction's gone since you've been kind of on your up and to the right trajectory?
Yeah. So we typically have several touch points throughout the month. We get him with each one of the stores at least once a month. Sometimes it's multiple times. And what I'm doing is I'm using him as a tool. I say that as to be able to anybody that we have in our organization that's new to the used car world, whether it be somebody who's a new acquisition person, whether it be a new used car manager, or anybody that touches used cars. I like to set them up with him to be able to have another point of contact, because we don't see everything. Sometimes people from another point of view, they're again pulling information from other dealers, and how they do and their processes really helps our team. So we like to say that we come up with everything, and we're the inventor of all this stuff, but most of us we're just pulling from other people that's been successful. Yep. So
I think this industry is great at that, and we're okay with it too.
It's fine. It's great. Find the best people that are doing the best things and copy the heck out of them. Steal the best out of it, right? Let's rise everyone. I love the dealers like yourself that are willing to share these things so that other dealers that maybe a month, 2 months, 2 years, 3 years behind process implementation like you have can have a vision for what it looks like moving forward. Derek, Drew, absolute pleasure hanging out with you guys today. Drew, thanks for getting over your time and your insights to help other dealers execute at the level that you are. And thanks for joining us on this Edge webinar.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Great to see you.
All right, that's a wrap. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to watch it again or share it with a friend, you can hop on over to ASOTU.com, click on media, drop down to ASOTU Edge webinars, and there you'll be able to see this one and all of the others. Thank you so much again for your time, and we'll see you next time.